Your mother had been putting sixpence away since January, not for herself, for Jean's daughter, who was getting married in September, who lived 4 doors down, and whose mother had brought soup when your youngest had whooping cough in 1962. You did not miss a neighbour's wedding in 1960s Britain. You simply did not. It did not matter what the week had looked like. Jean's daughter was getting married, and your mother had been putting sixpence away since January, and that was the end of it. This is the part of 1960s Britain that the numbers never quite capture. Not the rent, not the gas bill. Those were the fixed things. This is about the other money. The chimney sweep once a year, the school photograph in October, the television license that arrived like a threat in a brown envelope, the Christmas club at Woolworths that started in January because December was already too late, the telegram that cost per word and so every word had to count, the money that went on life, not just survival, life. The toaster was considered ambitious. When someone on your street got married, the question of what to give was taken seriously. Your mother thought about it for several days, consulted with 2 neighbours, and came to a decision that balanced what was appropriate with what could actually be afforded. A set of towels was safe. A tea set was generous. A toaster was almost extravagant for a neighbour's wedding, more appropriate for a sister or a close friend's daughter. Most wedding gifts cost between 10 shillings and £1. For a working family, £1 was roughly a 15th of the weekly wage. It required planning. It required the sixpence a week going into the envelope since January. What the money bought was not just a gift. It bought your place in the neighbourhood. Your mother wrapped it carefully, in paper bought specifically for the purpose, with a card that said the right thing, and she delivered it herself. The wedding gift was planned for months. The next expense arrived once a year and left the whole house smelling of soot. The chimney sweep. He came in October, every October, because a blocked chimney in November was not a problem you wanted to discover by accident. 5 shillings in the early 1960s, roughly half a day's wages. Not cheap, not optional. A blocked flue meant smoke back into the room, and in the worst cases, a chimney fire that could take the house with it. Children were sent to the back garden to watch for the brush appearing from the chimney pot. This was presented as a privilege. It was also a way of keeping them out of the front room while the soot came down. When the brush appeared, you shouted. The sweep heard you through the walls. The brush disappeared. The job was done. 5 shillings. Once a year. October, without fail. The sweep came once a year. The school photographer came once a year too, and what that cost tells you everything about what was considered worth spending money on. The letter came home in October. Your child handed it over without comment, which was always the sign that something financial was involved. A small print was 1 shilling and sixpence. The class photograph, everyone in rows, teacher at the end, the year on a board in the front, was 3 shillings. Your mother ordered both, because the class photograph was the one that lasted. Individual prints changed every year. The class photograph went in the sideboard drawer and stayed there for decades. Still there when you cleared the house 30 years later. Slightly faded. Everyone in their best clothes, squinting into the light. 5 shillings, all in, worth every penny. The photograph went in the drawer for 30 years. The television license went on the wall, and the man who checked whether you had one was one of the most feared visitors in 1960s Britain. £4 a year for black and white. When colour arrived, the colour license was £10 more than half a week's wages, which is why most families kept the black and white set for years after colour became available. The detector van was not a myth. It existed. A plain van that could, in theory, detect the signal from an unlicensed television. Whether it worked as well as the post office claimed was debated on the street. Whether anyone wanted to test it was a different matter entirely. Your father knew where the license was. Your mother knew where the license was. The children were told to say nothing if anyone official knocked. £4 once a year, and the particular relief of putting the new disc in the window, knowing you were covered for another 12 months. The license once a year. The Christmas club every single week, and what it built by December was one of the best feelings in the 1960s British year. You started in January. 6pence a week at Woolworths. The woman stamped the card. You put it somewhere safe because the card was the money. By October, you had built up somewhere between £1 and £2. By December, the card was worth real money, and the children's Christmas was built around what was on it. Woolworths was not the only one. Some factories ran a club for workers. Some women ran informal versions £1 a week between 12 women, one getting the full pot each month by rotation. The woman who got December was considered the luckiest. 6pence a week, every week, from January, for a December that felt like something earned rather than simply spent. The Christmas club built the December. The telegram could arrive any month, and what it cost explains exactly why people chose every word so carefully. You paid per word, not per message, per word, which is why telegrams read the way they did. Arriving Friday, stop me station, stop love mother. Every word cost money. Stop replaced punctuation, because punctuation was charged as a word. You composed it carefully at the post office counter, stripping out every word that could be stripped without losing the meaning. Around 1 shilling for the first 12 words, a penny for each word after. The boy who delivered it came on a bicycle. Most families felt a cold feeling when they saw him coming up the path. Telegrams were not sent for ordinary news. Ordinary news arrived in a letter. Telegrams arrived when something had happened that could not wait 3 days for the post. A shilling for 12 words, and whoever sent it had stood at a counter and paid for every single one. The telegram cost per word. The library fine cost per day, and the shame of bringing one home cost something that had no price at all. A penny a day. Over 2 weeks of a forgotten book that was 14 pence, nearly a shilling, which your mother made clear in a tone that required no raising of voice to be completely understood. The date was stamped inside the front cover, not approximate. The fine began the morning after. Children carried exact money to the counter because asking for change at a library fine desk was a further humiliation nobody was prepared to undergo voluntarily. The fine was paid. The child came home slightly chastened and resolved, genuinely, not to let it happen again. It happened again. A penny a day for a library book. The cobbler charged more, but what he gave you back was worth considerably more than what you paid. You did not throw shoes away, not when a good pair of leather shoes cost 12 shillings and 6pence, and the child's feet were going to grow out of them in 6 months regardless. You wore them until the sole wore through, then took them to the cobbler. 2 shillings to resole a child's shoe, half a crown for an adult's. He knew your family's shoes because he had been repairing them for years, and the leather told its own story. Segs were the metal studs fitted into heel and toe to slow the wear. Children with segs sparked on stone floors and announced their arrival from the corridor. 6pence extra. Lasted months. 2 shillings to resole. 6pence for segs. Shoes that lasted another year. The cobbler kept the shoes going. The electricity meter kept the lights going, as long as someone remembered to keep a shilling on the shelf above it. There was a shilling on the shelf above the meter. Just one. Always just one. Your mother put it there on Monday morning. When the lights went out, usually on a Tuesday evening, your father felt his way to the shelf in the dark, put the shilling in the slot, and the lights came back on. Nobody spoke about it. The prepayment meter was not a punishment. It was a system. For families managing money week by week, paying as you used made sense. You ran out when you ran out, and you put more in. The panic came when it ran out on a Sunday evening, and there was no shilling on the shelf, and your father had to find one from somewhere else entirely. 1 shilling. On the shelf above the meter. The most important shilling in the house. The shilling kept the lights on. The knitting wool kept the children warm, and what it cost your mother to make a jumper, compared to buying one, explains everything about how 1960s families thought. The pattern cost 6pence. A serdar or a patens, showing a cheerful child wearing the finished item. The wool cost 4pence per ounce. A child's jumper took 8 ounces. Total, 3 shillings and 4pence. A comparable shop jumper cost 7 or 8 shillings. Your mother saved 4 shillings by knitting it herself. Over 3 winter jumpers, that was 12 shillings, enough for the chimney sweep, enough for 2 weeks of the Christmas club. She knitted in the evenings with the television on, the needles moving without her looking, because her hands knew what to do. The ball of wool decreased steadily through October and November, and the jumper grew upward from the ribbing in whichever colour had been cheapest at the market. 6pence for the pattern, 4pence an ounce. A jumper that lasted 2 winters. The wool kept the children warm. Friday evening the bingo hall kept your mother sane, and what that cost was one of the most carefully managed expenses of the week. 1 shilling to get in. The books were 6pence each, and most women bought 2 because 1 was unlucky and 3 was extravagant. The dabber, a small rubber stamp in purple or green, was your own, brought from home. Friday evening, the hall filled with women who had spent the week managing the house, the money, the children, and who were now in a warm room with a cup of tea and 2 books of cards for 2 hours that were entirely theirs. Your mother came home at 9:30, having usually won nothing, and having thoroughly enjoyed herself regardless. When the winnings came £1, sometimes 2, they went straight into the purse and were allocated immediately. 2 shillings for the evening. Every Friday. Without negotiation. Friday was bingo. Saturday was the chip shop, and what you could get for free if you knew the right words is something every person of a certain age still remembers. Scraps were free if you knew to ask. Most children in 1960s Britain knew because an older child had told them, and that child had been told by someone else, in an unbroken chain of useful information that passed between children without adult involvement. Scraps were the pieces of batter that fell off the fish during frying and collected at the bottom of the fryer. Hot, crispy, tasting of everything good about a chip shop. The owner, asked nicely, scooped a handful into a paper bag without charge. You stood at the counter with your 6pence for chips, asked for scraps, got them, and walked home with chips and scraps, and the satisfaction of someone who had obtained something for nothing through knowledge rather than luck. Scraps free if you knew to ask. 12 things that cost money in 1960s Britain. Not the rent, not the gas bill, not the insurance man on Monday. Those had been counted before. These were the others, the ones around the edges of the week that required planning, thought, and the skill of making a fixed amount cover a life rather than just a survival. Jean's daughter's wedding gift put away since January. The chimney sweep in October. The school photograph in the drawer. The television license on the wall. The Christmas club card growing since January. The telegram composed word by word. The library fine paid in exact change. The cobbler with the family's shoes on his last. The shilling on the shelf. The wool and the pattern and the evening's knitting. The bingo hall on Friday. The chip shop scraps that were free if you knew to ask. This was not hardship. This was life, managed carefully, with the knowledge that money had weight, and every penny had come from somewhere and was going somewhere, and that knowing exactly where was not a burden. It was just what you did. Tell me in the comments what you remember spending money on in 1960s Britain that nobody ever talks about now. Thanks for watching.